Quick, think of a shape. Chances are there's a country that matches it. Well, maybe not a dodecahedron. From the curves of Italy's boot to the narrow stretch of Chile's coastline, countries around the world have borders that stand out for all the right reasons. We're going on a whirlwind tour of the world's weirdest, coolest, and most beautiful country shapes. Some you'll know, and some will blow your mind. And if you like these geography deep dives, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, I'll have to start selling slightly used globes on eBay. Number 21, Italy. Land of pasta, amore, and soccer. Or is it football? Italy's shape is one of the most instantly recognizable on any map. It's a long, slender leg stretching down from the Alps in the north with the toe launching Sicily across the Mediterranean like it owes rent. Italy owes a lot to geography. The Alps, nature's wall. Invaders took one look and said, yeah, let's knock on France's door instead. The endless coastline? Basically a 4,700-mile launch pad for traders, pirates, and navies that couldn't mind their own business. And being smack in the middle of the Mediterranean made Italy everyone's favorite crossroads. Romans, Greeks, modern Europeans. Got an empire? Congrats, you're probably making a pit stop there. Okay, Italian lesson time. The peninsula is called Lo Stivale. Who needs Duolingo? It means boot. And this isn't a fashion statement. It's 600 miles of leg, leaving a footprint from the Po Valley right into the sea. Italy isn't just a boot, it's a boot with roommates. 2 of them, in fact. The Vatican and San Marino live rent-free inside its borders, like kids who never moved out of the basement. Italy is Europe's sampler platter. Volcanoes, mountains, vineyards, beaches, you name it, it's here. And each region couldn't be more different. The north is making bank. Lombardy runs at 127% of the EU average GDP. Meanwhile, down south, Calabria is scraping by at 56%. Italy has been limping along on uneven legs for centuries. From one long, skinny country to another, this time on the far side of the world. Number 20. Chile doesn't just look long, it is long. It runs more than 2,600 miles, but its widest point? Barely 217 miles. That's not a country, that's a doodle someone scribbled on the margins of South America and forgot to erase. On one side, there's the Andes. The other, the Pacific. Chile didn't need some guy with a ruler. Nature boxed it in. And that frustrates every cartographer ever. In 1881, Argentina and Chile signed a treaty carving up Patagonia, conveniently ignoring the fact it was blank space on the map. Only the indigenous tribes living there knew the land. Think 2 neighbors arguing over who gets which half of a house they've never set foot in. But despite all this, Chile has a lot going on. Chile is nature's overachiever. Up north, the Atacama Desert, the driest place on Earth that isn't Antarctica. It also looks like a Hollywood set for every sci-fi movie ever. Patagonia? Crammed rainforests, fjords, and landscapes that feel like an entirely different planet. Between those extremes, you get volcanoes, vineyards, glaciers, and a coastline that just won't quit. Nearly 4,000 miles of it. For a country so skinny, Chile flexes harder than half the continent. Speaking of slim countries, let's shrink things down even further. Number 19. The Gambia, located in West Africa, is a thin ribbon of land that hugs the Gambia River, like a country with a liquid security blanket. It squeezes right through Senegal, muttering, "Excuse me, just passing through," before hitting the Atlantic. That gives it a pretty unique shape. What caused this shape? Colonialism. Africa's least favorite interior decorator. For the British, the river was a prime piece of real estate, a watery highway linking their outposts in Sierra Leone and Ghana. The catch? Britain controlled the river, not the land on either side. And that's kind of a problem. By the 1800s, France switched tactics. They inched toward the Gambia River. Britain panicked and spilt their tea, and then stamped the Gambia with a protectorate label in 1888. France reluctantly handed Britain the river. The 2 rivals sat down to carve up the land, totally ignoring the people who lived there. Empires, am I right? Britain crushed any resistance, locking down the Gambia's odd borders. From empires where the sun never sets to tax havens when the sun always shines. Number 18. Monaco might be small, but it makes up for it with glamour, elegance, and enough money to make entire countries jealous. Wedged between France and Italy, it clings to the Mediterranean on a crescent-shaped sliver. It's less of a country, more a luxury add-on. Monaco looks like it was carved straight out of a postcard, a very expensive postcard. It's tiny, glittering, and absurdly rich. Just 0.7 square miles of seafront stuffed with casinos, yachts, and city streets that double as a Formula One racetrack. It's a traffic cop's worst nightmare. On a map, it barely shows up, a crescent-shaped smudge on the Riviera. But every inch screams money. It's like a microstate that decided to cosplay as an empire. And honestly, it's pulling it off. Let's head across the Mediterranean and visit our next weird shape. Number 17. Croatia has a pretty fascinating shape. It looks like it's giving Bosnia an awkward side hug, and not a friendly one. Bosnia gets just 12 miles of coastline at Neum, more speed bump than beach. Neum even cuts through Croatia. If you're driving south, you leave Croatia, enter Bosnia, and then re-enter Croatia, all just to reach Dubrovnik. Think of the passport stamps. So why the weird setup? Drama. Lots of drama. Venice and the Ottomans spent ages tugging over Dalmatia, and like a kid in a divorce, Dubrovnik was caught in the middle. By the 1600s, Dubrovnik was technically independent, but paying the Ottomans its lunch money for protection. Then in 1683, war broke out. Dubrovnik panics, thinking the Ottomans' enemies will come knocking. Their solution? Hand over a tiny coastal strip to the Ottomans as a human sacrifice, a human shield. It worked. But Bosnia got the world's saddest slice of beachfront. It was a pretty genius move. Anyone trying to get to Dubrovnik had to deal with the Ottomans first. The downside? Croatia was left with an exclave. Today, tourists cross a border just to reach the beach. Awkward, yeah, but perfect for globetrotters. Enough about Europe's coastline drama. Let's head east. Number 16. India's one of the easiest countries to spot. It's a giant triangle pointing into the Indian Ocean. Up north, the Himalayas act like nature's do not enter sign. On one side, you've got the Arabian Sea. On the other, the Bay of Bengal. Geography gave it a little bit of everything. Deserts, jungles, monsoons, like a climate buffet. It's also got one of the busiest borders on the planet. 6 neighbors, and Bangladesh, the noisy one. That whole mess kicked off in 1947 when Britain bailed on the subcontinent. They gave a lawyer 5 weeks to carve up millions of lives. It didn't go well. The new border stranded entire towns without clinics, schools, or passports. People were trapped in limbo. About 12 million tried to move, and up to 1 million were killed in the chaos. Partition wasn't careful planning. It was the map equivalent of scribbling your homework 5 minutes before class. It took almost 50 years to untangle its border mess. And even now, the 2,500-mile line is a maze of squiggles and switchbacks. It's more complicated than my dating life. On the map, it creates a jagged hook that nearly swallows Bangladesh, like a hungry Pac-Man. So far, we've had a country that's basically a fashion statement, another that turned itself into a racetrack, and a border squabble proving even countries don't play nice with the people next door. Let's continue this geometric geography tour. Number 15. Namibia looks simple at first glance. A rectangle, ocean on one side, neighbors on the others. All good. But look down here. See that weird tail sticking out to the east? That's the Caprivi Strip. The rest of Namibia is all deserts, mountains, and the Skeleton Coast, a place so metal it sounds like it was named by edgy teenagers. But that little strip, it sticks out like a glitch on the map, an accident you can't unsee. It runs about 280 miles from the northeast toward the Zambezi River. Then it mixes things up, varying from about 20 to 65 miles wide. Humans mostly avoid it, thanks to flooding and lousy soil. Antelope and wildebeest, though, they're all in. So why does Namibia have this awkward arm? Take a guess. That's right, it's our old friend colonialism. named for German Chancellor Leo von Caprivi. He traded it in 1890 like a kid swapping baseball cards. Germany thought it scored a river highway to the Indian Ocean. Instead, it got Victoria Falls blocking the way. Something the British probably knew about, but forgot to mention. So instead of an aquatic highway, Germany got a swampy animal hangout and a border headache that's been annoying people ever since. The Germans never figured out what to do with it. South Africa babysat it for a while, and eventually it landed with Namibia. Today, it's less a valuable corridor and more a geographical appendix. Doesn't do much, but it's there. Number 14. Rwanda, a tiny country approximately the size of the US state of Maryland. Rwanda is boxed in on all sides. Burundi, Tanzania, Uganda, and the DRC all surround it. It's called the Land of a Thousand Hills. Sounds cute until you try walking anywhere. The Virunga Mountains in the northwest part of Rwanda contain the country's highest peak, Karisimbi, topping out at nearly 15,000 feet. Two of the world's biggest rivers, the Nile and the Congo, both flow through the country, and Lake Kivu marks its western edge. Small country, sure, but it's like nature dumped every feature it could find in there. Rwanda's borders? Another colonial gift that keeps on giving. Today, Rwandans argue part of eastern Congo are rightfully theirs. It's a claim rooted in pre-colonial ties, and in 3 sloppy maps Europeans sketched before they'd even set foot in Kivu. They were basically guessing. The Germans in 1884 shoved the border onto Congolese land. Another map chopped up Rwanda nearly in half, and a third added its own spin. It was cartographic improv, and it's still playing out in regional conflicts more than a century later. Next, we're going from Africa's tangled borders to Southeast Asia. Number 13. Laos' palm tree shape is down to geography and, drumroll please, politics. The trunk stretches 650 miles north to south. On the west, the Mekong River acts as a watery border with Thailand. On the east, the Annamite Mountains slam the door shut with Vietnam. So, Laos got stuck with a slim body while the chunky countries side-eye it. At the top, the Golden Triangle, where Laos meets Myanmar and China. Forget tourist brochures, this is one of the world's most notorious smuggling crossroads. Opium flowed out of here. The French locked it down during colonial days. Nothing says progress like owning the world's drug superstore. Laos also holds a world record. Yay! It's the most bombed country on Earth. Oh. From 1964 to 1973, the US dropped over 2 million tons of ordnance here. More than all the bombs dropped on Europe in World War II. Overkill much? At that point, Laos wasn't a country, it was a dartboard. So yeah, under the leafy outline, you've got 70% mountains, 18 ethnic groups, 1 river that runs the show, and a reminder that geography makes shapes, but politics leaves scars. So, from a bombed-out palm tree, let's head to a country that takes hide-and-seek to a whole new level. Number 12. Lesotho is basically South Africa's roommate who never moved out. It's one of only 3 countries in the world completely swallowed by another. Lesotho is all mountains. Its borders were carved by the Drakensberg into a fortress of ridges and valleys. During the Mafeking of the 1800s, while wars scattered tribes across southern Africa, the Basotho united and built their own mountain kingdom. Meanwhile, I'm building pillow forts in my spare room. But then, King Moshoeshoe I did the impossible in the 1800s. He actually got people to agree on something. He united the clans, but the Europeans couldn't resist getting messy. The Boers wanted land, the British wanted control, and Lesotho was caught in the crossfire. By 1868, Moshoeshoe had had enough and basically called Britain for backup. Basotholand was born, a protectorate that stuck around until independence in 1966. The borders never budged, which is why Lesotho's still jammed inside South Africa like a postage stamp. A very mountainous, very stubborn dot on the map. From Lesotho, boxed in by South Africa, to a republic that's out on its own. Different continents, same weird geography. Number 11. Nakhchivan is Azerbaijan's lost puzzle piece. It's an exclave cut off from the mainland, wedged between Armenia, Iran, and Turkey. About 2,100 square miles of landlocked, so close, yet so far. The place is ancient, too. People were here in the Paleolithic area, and its capital gets name-dropped by everyone from Greek scholars to Armenian historians. Over time, it's been Persian, Mongol, Armenian, Turkish. Everyone's had a turn. Must be nice being popular. The Soviets eventually stamped it as an autonomous republic, which is code for still complicated. The land itself doesn't make things easier. Mountains tower on the Armenian and Iranian borders, with Mount Kapudjuk hitting nearly 12,800 feet. Then there's the Aras River snaking along the south powering dams. And then there's Snake Mountain. Legend says it cracked when Noah's Ark bumped into it. Great boat builder, pretty lousy sailor. Nakhchivan's borders and history may be messy, but it's never boring. So far, we've seen enclaves that refuse to budge, coastlines carved like nature was doodling, and mountain kingdoms living rent-free inside bigger neighbors. Now we've hit our top 10. Got a favorite country shape? Let me know in the comments. Number 10. Japan. Part-time island nation, part-time seahorse. Up here is Hokkaido. That's the head. Honshu arches into the body, Shikoku dangles like a belly fin, and Kyushu's the tail. The whole thing stretches about 1,900 miles from tip to tail, but it's so narrow in places that you could drive across in under an hour. Those islands sit right on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Sounds mystical. Really? It's just Earth's worst mood ring. Earthquakes and volcanoes on repeat. Seriously, over 100 are active. It's Japan's version of a constant acne breakout. About 70% of the terrain is mountains. Mount Fuji looms over the nation, nearly 12,400 feet tall. Flat land? Kinda like finding a quiet spot on the Tokyo subway. So cities squeeze onto the coasts, nearly 18,500 miles of them. Beautiful shorelines, sure, but also tsunami central, which means swimming lessons aren't optional here, they're survival. Volcanoes and tsunamis are one thing, but what happens when history plays connect the dots with entire countries? Number 9. Papua New Guinea's border with Indonesia has history, with a capital H. The borders with Indonesia runs nearly 500 miles across jungles, rivers, swamps, and the rugged Star Mountains. And it's all courtesy of Europe in the 1800s. Colonial powers sliced up the island like it was pizza, just as long as there was no pineapple. Families found themselves in different countries. There were barely any markers showing where the border was. It's the kind of border that only exists on paper. Divide first, explain later. From Papua New Guinea's paper borders, we jump to North Africa, where two tiny European outposts still cling to the coast. Number 8. Ceuta and Melilla are Spain's two pieces of Africa. They're fortified cities perched on Morocco's coast that somehow never got returned. Ceuta was grabbed by Portugal in 1415, then handed over to Spain in 1668. Melilla came later, seized in 1497 during the Reconquista. Since then, both cities have been Europe's version of beachfront property. It's less about the view, more about controlling who sails through the Strait of Gibraltar. Think of them as Spain's house party guests who never left, definitely overstaying their welcome. Their spot on Africa's doorstep makes Ceuta and Melilla prime real estate. Too bad they come with fences packed with razor wire and cameras. Hardly Insta-worthy. Morocco has claimed them since independence in 1956. Spain insists they're as Spanish as tapas and cathedrals that won't be finished. The result? A political tug-of-war that's been dragging on for decades. Now, let's jump to Borneo, where one country managed to end up with a country shaped like a jigsaw puzzle, complete with a missing piece. Number 7. Brunei isn't one country, so much as two chunks. Malaysia's Sarawak state slices right through it, leaving the main section in the west and the poor Temburong district stranded on the far side of the Limbang corridor, just hanging around like the awkward guest no one's talking to at the party. In 1890, Sarawak's White Rajas annexed Limbang from Brunei in what's been called an involuntary cession. That's bureaucracy talk for mine. The loss split Brunei in two, creating today's odd borders. A 2009 deal with Malaysia smoothed things over, but Brunei still clings to Limbang, because letting go clearly isn't their strong suit. Think Clingy X, but with more jungle and checkpoints. Today, the border snakes through rainforest, popping up in narrow corridors like awkward reminders of history that won't move on. From Brunei's divided chunks to the Caribbean, where a narrow strip of land juts out between Guatemala and Mexico. Number 6. Belize's southern extension juts out like a finger trying to touch the Caribbean Sea. That skinny digit wasn't an accident. In the 19th century, colonial powers fought over every inch of coastline. And this sliver of land was in their sights. Spain claimed it, then passed the headache to Guatemala and Mexico. Then Britain muscled in to lock down trade routes. The result was the Wai'anae Treaty of 1859, which drew the lines. Think of it less as a border agreement and more like kids fighting over who gets the last piece of coastline. Guatemala kept claiming Belize long after it was independent. Apparently, borders are never really final. In Belize's skinny southern strip, the border wiggles along rivers and forests, bending to whatever obstacle was in the way. The result is a gateway to the Caribbean that doubles as a cultural mashup. Spanish, indigenous, and British colonial leftovers all crammed into one strip of land. Let's hope the British didn't influence the food, though. We've seen Papua New Guinea turned into a colonial group project gone wrong, and Spain's 2 African party crashers who still won't leave. Are you ready for the top 5? You won't believe how number 3 got its shape. Number 5. Paraguay is one of South America's unlucky landlocked countries. It's shaped like a rectangle with an identity problem. 2 rivers do most of the border work, the Paraguay and the Paraná. One snakes down the west with Argentina and Bolivia, the other carves out the east with Brazil and Argentina again. Neat, right? Except every bend of those rivers is basically the scar tissue of centuries of fights, treaties, and wars. The biggest influence? The War of the Triple Alliance in the 1860s. Paraguay took on Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay and suffered territorial losses. Because why fight one enemy when you can go hard? It didn't end well. Paraguay lost chunks of land and was cut down to the river basin shape it has now. These days, it's wedged between 3 neighbors, no coastline in sight, clinging to its rivers for trade and survival. But at least it's a rectangle, kinda. Paraguay's borders may be messy, but at least you can still find the country in one piece. The next place on our list? Not so lucky. Number 4. The border between Tajikistan and Uzbekistan is less a line and more a bad joke. It stretches over 800 miles of brutal terrain. And thanks to Soviet planning, it's dotted with enclaves. Tiny little islands of one country marooned inside the other. Think Swiss cheese, but less appetizing. The Soviets drew it this way to shuffle ethnic groups and control resources, not to make anyone's life easier. Now locals have to cross international borders just to check on farmland or visit relatives. Imagine needing a passport to borrow a cup of sugar. Checkpoints, zigzags, and borders nobody can agree on. It's like the Soviets let toddlers loose with crayons. And all Central Asia got? Tension, paperwork, and daily headaches. Sounds just like me at tax season. When you ignore geography and culture, you don't create a border. You create a mess. It's time for our top 3. Place your bets, because if the last few borders looked like a toddler's art project, just wait until you see what tops the list. Number 3. The DRC is massive, but its strangest feature is a thin extension to the Atlantic called the Congo Pedicle. Funny name? Funny shape. Colonial powers left it this way during the scramble for Africa, slicing up territory like cake. The DRC got the crumbs, with one awkward finger of coastline to show for it. When King Leopold II carved out the Congo Free State as his personal colony, the borders weren't about geography or culture, it was about making bank. It was rich with resources. Then European powers wanted in on the action. The Congo was left with straight lines, random bulges, and awkward peninsulas. But hey, at least it's interesting. The skinny western arm wasn't an accident. It was designed to give the colony a front door to the Atlantic, the perfect exit ramp for ivory, rubber, and minerals. The Congo River shaped a few boundaries inside, but it wasn't enough. When there's money to be made, rivers don't draw borders. Colonial rulers do. From a skinny arm to one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Number 2. South Korea's borders trace back to 1945, when the US and Soviet Union split the peninsula at the 38th parallel. It was supposed to be temporary, but it wasn't. By 1948, two Koreas were on the map, pointing at each other, insisting they were the only real one, just like that Spider-Man meme. Then in 1950, North Korea crossed the line, literally. The Korean War left millions dead and the peninsula wrecked. 3 years later, the war ended where it started, right around that same arbitrary line. So you gotta ask, was it worth it? In 1953, the Korean armistice created the DMZ. It's a 2.7-mile wide buffer zone. Buffer is doing some heavy lifting here. Down the middle runs the military demarcation line. It's like the front line, but with no action. No peace treaty was ever signed. Technically, North and South Korea are still at war. They're just terrible at scheduling the sequel. The DMZ slices across mountains and rivers, bristling with soldiers. It's less a border, more the world's most tense waiting room. And now, we've reached the strangest country shape of them all. The nation that looks like someone lost a fight with a geometry set. Number 1. Thailand's shape depends on who you ask. Some say axe, some say elephant head. Either way, the north's the oversized top, and the south's the skinny peninsula hanging on for dear life. The north of Thailand is all pointy mountains. It's a natural fortress that decided where people could live and forced the borders to twist around it. Call it the country's backbone. Head east and you hit the Korat Plateau. This is a dry bump on the map, somehow christened the elephant's ear. If you squint and have an overactive imagination, it kinda does. Smack in the middle is the Chao Phraya River Basin, the country's breadbasket and power seat. Whoever ran this valley ran Thailand. Think of them as player 1. The borders around it, shaped by kingdoms fighting, colonizers scribbling lines, and the occasional mountain. The southern peninsula was about trade and control, but today it just makes Thailand look like a country that sprouted a tail. Centuries of treaties eventually nailed the borders down, but the shape still looks like it was assembled from spare parts. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MapPack.